guys? How are y'all doing today? Today is Tuesday, March 10th. And you know what's special about March 10th? Well, absolutely fucking nothing. But you know what's special tomorrow on March 11th? The Model Y is gonna be released. We have some new updates. Let's talk about those updates. Let's get right into the video. 3, 2, 1, roll the intro. So what is something that is new that we don't know about the Model Y yet? Well, for starters, the newest thing that we've gotten was that some people have gotten confirmation emails telling them that their Model Y is ready and they've gotten their VIN number so they can do, all the paperwork, the insurance and license plate and whatnot. And guess what? Those people actually got the confirmation to do the delivery on March 11th. That's tomorrow. Literally tomorrow. Do you believe how big of a deal that is? That means that Tesla unveiled their Model Y and then brought it out to market within 1 year. 1 year. Considering this is a leap year, it's still within a year. If they did that on March 15th, that would have been just exactly a year. Well, technically 366 days because the car was unveiled on March 15th. So technically it's just slightly more than a year, but since a leap year is considered a year, we can say it's a year, but it won't be within a year. Now that people have gotten confirmations that they'll get the Model Y, we know that those cars will be ready for delivery by March 11th. Like I talked in other videos, there are so many cars that have been going out to all around America pretty much. I've even put images of the factory. The parking lot of the factory is totally packed and they're clearing it as fast as they can, and Tesla's really ramping up the production of Model Y. Holy crap. They're gonna start off with performance, and then I think they said 19 and 21 inch wheels. Then they're gonna come down to long range all-wheel drive. Then they'll probably start doing long range rear-wheel drive. And then along with that, they'll do standard range. And then next year we'll have the 7-seater configuration. So if you don't wanna wait till next year to get your Model Y, don't order the standard range, don't order the long range, order the performance with 21 inch wheels, get the highest price listed on the website, and that will actually mean that you will get your Model Y as soon as possible, preferably this year, even if you order now. So now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about the biggest update that we've gotten that is very, very useful for future Model 3 owners. The biggest update that we've gotten right now was dimensions. We now know the dimensions of the Model Y, what they're gonna be, and now we can actually use those dimensions to compare it to other cars. And I'm gonna be comparing them to luxury cars, as most of the buyers are gonna be from the luxury car segment anyways, because the first batches of Model Ys will be already crazy expensive, so I'm gonna compare it to luxury cars. And then if you want me to make a video on the economy or the standard SUVs like by Toyota, Honda and whatnot, comment down below and I might just make one for that. But right now in this video, I'm gonna purely concentrate on luxury cars, some of the best selling luxury cars. So what are the dimensions of the Model Y? Now, yes, this is gonna be in metric. Yes, Americans, I don't give a shit. Okay, we're all moving to metrics. I'm using metrics, okay? I'm using the metric system. It's gonna be in millimeters. It's not gonna be in inches. Do your own calculations. I honestly don't care. Okay, let's get started. So, the Model Y has a length of 4,694 millimeters. It has a width of 1,933 millimeters and a height of 1,443 millimeters. Now that doesn't really mean anything on its own unless you compare it to another vehicle. So now I pulled up the Audi Q5. Let's look at the Audi Q5. The Audi Q5 has a length of 4,663 millimeters, a width of 1,893 millimeters, and a height of 1,653 millimeters. So the Model Y is slightly longer, slightly wider, and actually in height just a bit shorter. Now that doesn't really matter too much, as if you actually see the Model Y, there is tons of room inside the car. So I don't think there'll be any issue with the headroom. By the way, Model 3 is more spacious than a Q5. I've sat in the back of a Q5. It is not spacious at all. And because a Model Y is an SUV, of course there's bound to be more room in that than the sedan, so than the Model 3. Alright, so now let's talk about the BMW X3. The X3 is 4,657 millimeters long, it is 1,881 millimeters in width, and 1,678 millimeters in height. So the Model Y again is longer, wider, and shorter in height than the X3. I think we're starting to see a trend here. Let's continue. Alright, so now let's talk about the Mercedes GLC, the third competitor to the Model Y. Now the Mercedes GLC will have a length of 4,662 millimeters, a width of 1,890, and a height of 1625 millimeters. Relative to the Model 3, it's the same thing. It's shorter in length, wider in width, and shorter in height. So we're actually starting to see a really good trend here. All the German brands actually have pretty much the same dimensions as all their other competitors. So what that means is more or less all the cars, the Mercedes GLC, the X3 and the Audi Q5 are pretty much the exact same, I wouldn't say car, but overall shape, size-wise, it's the exact same car. Whereas the Model Y is gonna be a bit different. Now there is a reason why it's actually shorter overall, because it does have less ground clearance than some of these SUVs, but generally speaking, you wouldn't take any of these SUVs off-roading anyways, ever, pretty literally ever. If you want an SUV to go off-roading, you would buy like a, I don't know, Toyota 4Runner, or you know what are they called? The Toyota Land Cruiser, a G-Wagon. I don't know why you take a G-Wagon off-road, but people do it. It's on YouTube everywhere. Yeah, or you would take a Jeep. There you go. Or pickup trucks or something. You would not take these family SUVs that are meant for more like, you know, family stuff. You would never take them off-road. So you don't really have to worry about the ground clearance. It's higher than the Model 3. So if Model 3 cuts it, yes, you're totally fine. Now let's move over to Japan. So in Japan, we have Lexus. I'm gonna be talking about the Lexus RX. Now the RX actually has dimensions of 5,000 millimeters in length. The width is 1,895, so basically 1,900 millimeters, and in height, it's only 1,710 millimeters tall. Now, this is an odd case. So this car is actually longer than the Model Y. It's not wider. Model Y is wider, and of course, the Model Y is shorter for obvious reasons. So now let's move on to the next Japanese company, Acura, Honda's sub-brand. Lexus was Toyota sub-brand. This is Honda sub-brand. So the Acura RDX has dimensions of 4744 millimeters in length, the width is 1900 millimeters, and the height is 1668. So it's the same thing here again with the Japanese competitors. They're a bit longer, not as wide, but they're taller. So the Model Y is actually shorter, just a bit shorter in length, but wider. So that should actually give you better stability when you're actually driving it either at higher speeds or just overall more comfort. Say when you're sitting in the back seats, shoulder to shoulder with everyone. Now let's come to the amazing Infiniti QX50. The reason why I said amazing is because I have the QX60. It's my mom's car, and I'm the second driver who drives it the most after my mom. And honestly speaking, that car is absolutely amazing, so I'm gonna guess the Infiniti QX50 is also just as good. Would I trade that in for a Model Y? Probably. Would I trade that in for a Model S? Yes. All right, now let's get into the dimensions. So for the dimensions, we have 4699 millimeters for length, we have 1903 millimeters for width, and we have 1677 millimeters for height. So again, the same thing in Japan. So it's a bit longer, a bit narrower, it's not as wide, but it's taller in height. So in Japan, we're seeing a trend. So it's a bit longer, it's not as wide as a Model Y, but it is taller. Okay, so I just Googled the best-selling SUVs in US, and I found out that I covered literally every single car except for one American car. By the way, personally, I'm not a fan of American cars. They're absolute trash. I'm being honest, they're pretty much trash. The engines are good, but everything else about it is pretty bad. It's terrible. So now let's talk about the Cadillac XT5. That's another best-selling SUV in America. The dimensions for the Cadillac are 4816 millimeters for length, 1902 millimeters for width, and 1679 millimeters for height. Now, comparing that to the Model Y, it's a bit longer, it's not as wide, but it's a bit taller. I think we're seeing a good trend with the Model Y. The Model Y is actually wider than the entire competition, which is fine for us Americans here. I will be concerned if you live in Europe when you get the Model Y, because it is wider than the Model 3. So if you think that the Model 3 is a big car for Europe, because I know I've been to Europe and the roads over there aren't really that big and cars generally are small anyways. So in my opinion, you have to actually try that out yourself, the Model Y, drive it around, get a test drive, get a feel for it, see if it's actually good for Europe. I know for Americans, totally fine. We drive in Cadillac Escalade's ESV versions, which are massive. They're huge, they're long, and it's basically not a problem driving it here. A lot of them are actually being driven in New York City, in a city center in Manhattan. So that says a lot about us Americans. We have bigger roads here, so it's not as big of a worry driving a wider car, parking a wider car, or anything like that. In Europe, I would want to at least try it and see how it is. Here in North America, I would not worry whatsoever. An advantage that we have for the Model Y is because the center of gravity is so down low, the tires are actually relatively wide. The Model Y is actually supposed to be a really comfortable car. We can assume that the Model Y will be really, really stable. A lot of people don't talk about that because most cars these days are stable anyways, but not that long ago, cars used to actually kind of like, I wouldn't say shake, but you can feel the effect of going fast. Now, not luxury cars generally, but some other cars you can actually feel it. I'm talking about SUVs. Yes, especially 10-15 years ago, you can definitely feel when you're driving a car, you can feel it kind of being unstable when you're going above like 120 kilometers an hour or 75 miles an hour. The Model Y shouldn't have an issue with that at all. It should be a really good car. Those were the dimensions, and I feel like you really shouldn't worry. But if you do worry and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I don't know how this is gonna play out, because dimensions are meant for exterior dimensions. They're not really the interior. The Model Y has a lot more room inside than all the other SUVs mentioned here. Like for example, it has 7 seats. That's comparable to an Acura MDX instead of an RDX. And I put the dimensions for an RDX. So really you can't necessarily say, oh, because the other cars are bigger, they're better, or anything like that, or that they have more room or something like that. Try it out yourself, get a test drive, get a feel for it, rent it out, I don't know, do whatever you have to do to see. The dimensions were just there so that, you know, you can just see if it fits in your garage. Definitely you don't have to worry about height, length, width. They're pretty much average. They're not too far off. What I've noticed is different countries actually have different dimensions. So for Germany, most of their cars are pretty much more or less the same. For Japan, most of their cars have pretty much the same dimensions. And then for Americans, I just showed one car, so we can't really compare, but they're more closer to Japan than they are to Germany because European roads and just regulations. I don't know, maybe people just go for smaller SUVs, who knows? So yeah, that's been it. Yes, it was a bit of a long one. Hope you enjoyed this one, and yeah, thank you for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.